This is episode 736 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing. I'm president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. I am very pleased to be joined this week by Darren White. He is running for mayor of Albuquerque, and among the many, many people I met when I first came to New Mexico, Darren's one of the earliest that I met. So welcome to Tipping Point, New Mexico, Darren.
Paul, it's really good to be with you. Thank you. And wow, what an accomplishment. Over 700 podcasts.
Yes, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Two a week, all but the Christmas to New Year's week. We take that, we're wild and crazy. We take that week off. But other than that, we do two a week. That's cool. And somehow we've gotten up to 736. So who knows? We'll keep going until we stop. I don't know. But thanks for coming on. And since we talk about how long you and I have known each other, by the way, I'm creeping ever so closely up to my 20th anniversary of being at the Rio Grande Foundation. Wow. March of 2006 is when I got started. And we went to regular meetings held of kind of conservative, center right, an offshoot of Grover Norquist's meeting up in Washington D.C. But since we enter through that, and you're running for mayor, tell us about yourself, Darren. You've got a long political history in New Mexico, but even if you want to start before that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was a kid like many that was chasing my dream of being a professional baseball player. Went to college in Texas, and my batting average was better than my grade point average. Let's just put it that way. And so I got a full scholarship, and I messed it up. I did. I really did. I had a gift, and I didn't pay attention to my grades. And so, Paul, when I got home from that semester that year, my father said, "I'm not paying for your college because you did have a gift and you lost it. And so consequences." Well, what I decided to do was I wanted the college money. I went into the Army, and I had a chance right away to sign up for the 82nd Airborne, direct enlistment, it was called. And I took it. I wanted to jump out of planes. That should tell you something about my psychological stability.
No comment.
Just wanted to jump out of perfect. Well, I did. And I loved it. And it was fun. And I got to be a part of, one of the greatest military divisions in our military history. Then, I got out and I always, like I said, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I grew up around a lot of New York City cops. And so I said to myself, if I didn't play baseball, I wanted to be a cop. And when that time came, I became a Houston police officer, stayed there for a little while, and transferred to Albuquerque. Was an Albuquerque cop. And then, from that breakfast that you talked about that we all attended, I met Gary Johnson. I worked for his campaign. I actually ran for State House in 1994. And I lost in the primary to a very well-known Pauline Goebbels, who was very well known at the time. She was a city councilor. And then I went to work pretty much full time. I was a sergeant in the police department at the time, but I was writing Gary's crime platforms. Went to Santa Fe with him and became his Secretary of Department of Public Safety. Did that for 5 years. I was a reporter at Channel 13 for 2 years. I was the sheriff for 7 years, and then worked for R.J. Berry before I retired.
All right. Well,
that's the Reader's Digest.
That is a very condensed version, but. Let me address the Gary Johnson time frame, because that gets to one of the issues I definitely want to flesh out a little bit, because
sure.
You famously, I guess maybe famously is the wrong word, but New Mexico famously, let's put it that way, resigned from that job with Gary Johnson on his drug stance, which of course Gary was way theoretically out in front of people, assuming that this is a trend that keeps going. It's certainly gotten to a point with the marijuana legalization. Gary was really in front of that whole parade, so to speak. And you being, in public safety at the time, said, essentially, Gary, sorry, can't go along with that. And you left his administration. Can you briefly go through? Yeah, I wasn't there in the States. So that's why I heard.
Gary announced in the summer, He announced in the summer that this was 1999, that he was going to advocate for the decriminalization of cannabis.
Okay.
And I didn't resign. In fact, I traveled with him back to Washington. I went to normal meetings with him because I wanted to learn about what Gary was talking about. I didn't agree with him, but I wanted to learn more about it. One thing I did agree with Gary is that we weren't winning the drug war. That was for sure.
Okay.
With the billions and billions of dollars that we're investing and the rate of consumption in our country, that was pretty evident. What happened though was in the winter, Gary decided that at a press conference, he was asked if he supported the legalization of all drugs because he said something about prohibition doesn't work no matter what drug it is. And then he made the comment, it was a follow-up question, said, do you believe that all drugs, methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, those should all be legal? And he said, yes. And that's when I contacted Lou Gallegos, who was the chief of staff, and I said, I can't do this anymore.
And just to clarify, decriminalization as used in my understanding, I want to make sure we're on the same page here, but decriminalization of marijuana means that it's still not technically legal, but maybe you only get a equivalent of a speeding ticket or a parking ticket as as you're doing it, you're breaking the law. But legalization, and then you're talking about all drugs, that's a whole different ballgame. That means you can go to, theoretically, maybe your local CVS, or obviously we have dispensaries here for the marijuana, right, and show them you're 21 and you can walk out of there with whatever drug you're talking about being legalized.
Right. And so, as I just said in my, when I resigned, is that if I couldn't stand by his side on that, then I needed to step aside. And, but when it came to the cannabis, I didn't agree with him at the time, but I wanted to learn more about his stance.
Sure.
And so when it came down to the heroin and the coke, I couldn't do it. That was enough for me.
So you have moved on among your many enterprises and different things that you've worked on and through over the years. You are involved in a marijuana legalization, a business that's involved in that. So you don't feel that that's in conflict at all with that past. You're comfortable with marijuana legalization and the where it's gone.
So what I got involved in New Mexico is medical cannabis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so actually, somebody had originally came to me in 2014. They wanted to apply for a medical license, and they asked if I could help draft the application. And at first they said no, because it was too long. I did the research, and I knew it was going to be over 1,400 pages, maybe over 1,000 at least, to do it right. And so then they came back to me and said, "Hey, let's do this, but we'll give you equity in the company if we get it." And so then I said, okay. And also what had happened is when I was in the 82nd Airborne, I had a very horrific injury to my knee that at the time required a full reconstruction. And back then it was pretty barbaric the way they used to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I had back surgery, and I started, and for 20 years, I was considered a chronic pain patient. Mm-hmm. And, I basically get all the opioids you wanted back then. And, and so what happened is somebody came to me, I was having trouble, and they gave me a cannabis cream, and they put the cream on me, and it helped me. I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. I was like, and I was shocked by it, Paul. I really was, because mm-hmm. I wasn't necessarily a believer. And so, yeah, we put the application together, we submitted it, and, we bootstrapped that company putting it together. And we made it one of the more successful cannabis companies in the country.
Now, before we move on to many other issues in the mayoral campaign, obviously marijuana has been legalized, or at least within the state of New Mexico. It's still technically illegal under federal law. It's a nuance there.
But Trump is talking about right now.
Trump has
actually
talked about
declassifying it to a Schedule 2.
And in Albuquerque, City Council has used some of the marijuana tax proceeds to set up a universal basic income program. I don't know if that's started yet, but it's one of their more recent things that they've done. So kind of just, you're a law enforcement guy. You've seen all sides of this issue as it's moved relatively quickly, speaking to where it is now.
Well, almost every state in the country has some form of legalization of cannabis.
Just give me a broad take on how this issue is working out? Do you think it's contributing significantly to the homeless population? I mean, I understand
it's look, in New Mexico, it's there are too many dispensaries. There is actually a way to do that through zoning, that to control that. I will be the first one to tell you, even though I have no interest in any of these businesses in New Mexico, I don't support the fact that they're on every corner and then in between. And there's a way to do that. Obviously, you can't go in and shut businesses down, but as they close down, you can, which a lot of them will. They won't survive. They will not survive this saturation of cannabis shops. And then what you just do is you put a moratorium on any more new licenses in Albuquerque. It's simple. It's not hard.
fair. All right. Well,
But let me talk about, you just talked about basic income,
absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk
which
about
I
that.
absolutely and fully oppose.
Okay.
Guaranteed basic income is socialism.
Right.
When that bill was passed in March of this year, there were some questions asked of the city. The first question was, why is this being funneled through the United Way? And basically, so everybody knows, guaranteed basic income is they pick 2 school districts using the public school system.
Right.
They will identify who these people are. It's 100 or something families in each of the schools, I think.
So it's through APS, but it's school areas within the city, not districts per.
There's 2 schools.
Schools,
down.
yeah.
It's limited to 2 schools.
Right.
That's their pilot project, because you know what this is, Paul.
Right.
They're getting their foot in the door.
Oh, absolutely.
And so what they did was, and Renee Grout asked, why aren't you doing this? Why are you not giving this $750 a month to these folks? And she looked, the city Keller's administration looked right at her and said, because we can't. Because Paul, we have something called the anti-donation clause. Right. And and so you're going to use these nonprofits to funnel this money to these families. And basically also what was brought up was that there's no control. There's basically, this is the honor system. They can purchase anything they want and they don't have to report it. The final question that was asked by Dan Lewis was, how are you going to determine whether these folks are U.S. citizens? And they said, we're not.
Okay.
So right now in Albuquerque, I guarantee you that money is actually going also to illegal immigrants. Regardless of where this money comes from, it's taxpayer dollars. It's just plain up socialism. In fact, Mayor Keller, in his press conference, when it was approved, said, this is one step to addressing the wealth gap. And that is the definition of socialism.
And just to put an even finer point on it, this is one of what I would call one of the more controversial votes taken by Luis Sanchez, who represents the West Side, or at least part of the West Side in Albuquerque, and is running for mayor.
And then also, Louis has changed. Obviously, he has changed since he's running for mayor now. And I like Louis. I do. He was a cop with APD, but he's changed his position apparently on Sanctuary City, and saying that federal funding is being threatened. Well, in June of last year, he had an opportunity to be the deciding vote to include certain crimes that APD could assist with ICE. They could coordinate with ICE to get them deported. He was the deciding no vote on that measure.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. Albuquerque is considered immigrant friendly, which is somewhat different from Sanctuary City. However, the Trump administration did recently label Albuquerque a sanctuary city.
And we are.
And could you kind of highlight what that means to be a sanctuary city, and
Sure.
what the idea, because we've been an immigrant friendly city for 25 years, as far as I understand it, technically.
Well, why wouldn't any city be an immigrant friendly?
Well,
we're all immigrants, right? I'm 3rd generation Irish American.
Right.
But what has happened, though, with that is it was taken, Tim Keller and many other of his ilk have taken that to use it as protection. They are shielding people, Paul, who are being charged with crimes like murder, rape, robbery, sex trafficking. They're shielding them. And what I have said on day one is, we're going to end that policy. We will allow ICE to, it doesn't take APD resources to do it. Just allow them to check the people, all the people who are arrested, to see if they're here illegally, and they put a detainer on them. Look, it's pretty simple, Paul. I think we have enough criminals of our own that we don't need illegal immigrants in our country breaking our laws. And if they do, they should be deported. And why is that? Why is that considered even controversial? I would argue that if you put that vote to a vote here in Albuquerque, that'd be a 75% issue where people would say, yes, if you're in this country illegally, you get accused of committing crimes, then you should be deported.
I think, yeah, if you described it in full detail as opposed to just the label, because that has become a cause celeb for certain folks on the left.
What's not friendly? You know what's not friendly? Is illegal immigrants in this city committing violent crimes, committing murder,
absolutely,
and making families have to grieve and suffer for loved ones. That's not friendly. And that's why I say to you, this isn't a radical approach. We did it under R.J. Berry, and basically was the same thing. The prisoner transport center is downtown. All the inmates are funneled through that. Just let ICE have a desk, just have a space on a desk where they can put a laptop computer up and just check who these people are.
All right. Well, let's take a quick step back, and I'll ask you, Mayor Keller, he's been there for 8 years. He's running for a third term. Give me your kind of elevator pitch or speech as to why you think Mayor Keller should not get another term in office.
Well, first of all, I'll say it this way. What is he going to do in 12 years that he hasn't done in 8? And that should keep you awake at night. And do you want to know what my elevator pitch is? Where is Albuquerque right now? Well, we've had to call in the National Guard because we're so dangerous, as the governor said in her when she declared the emergency, that we are in a crime crisis, that we called in the National Guard. And we have city employees. Our city is so dirty and overrun with tent cities and homelessness and lawlessness that we have city employees cleaning up human waste. That's hard to say, Paul, because it's disgusting. But if you look around our city, look, we've had our problems. We're like any major city, but our city is dirty. It's overrun with crime. Under Mayor Keller's administration, according to FBI statistics, by the time he's done with his term, there will have been probably 800 murders. 800 murders. Mayor Keller always likes to say, this is we've had the biggest decrease in crime in the last year, in the last 10 years. Well, let me remind you what it was like in 2014. 2014, there were 30 murders in this state, Paul. 30 in our city, excuse me. Last year, there was 106. How the hell is that a reduction in crime? And I will say this to you when I talk about the homeless and I talk about Tim Keller. He talks about how he loves our city and Albuquerque is making a comeback. A comeback? Do you drive around this city? Do you even have your eyes open, or do you just stay in your 11th floor office? Because if you drove around our city, you would see that it's a wasteland of homelessness, of lawlessness. And I'm not just talking about the central corridor. It's everywhere. And it's disgusting what our city has become. Next year is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. Congress has appropriated a bunch of funds to have a celebration. Hey, we're not ready for the party. And if you don't think I'm wrong, drive right a mile from here, Paul, a mile from where you and I are at right now. And you drive down Central Avenue and you tell me we're ready for a 100-year celebration. The Albuquerque Tribune a month ago did a feature on all the kind of the cool
the Journal, I hope.
Chicago Tribune.
Oh, okay. You said Albuquerque Tribune.
Sorry.
I was like, boy, they haven't existed in a long time there.
No, excuse me.
That's okay.
I got ahead of myself. Chicago Tribune.
All right.
They did a feature on all the little cities along the Route 66 court, from Chicago to Barstow, I guess is what it is, if I remember right. Well, there's all, it has this, the Route 66, it's got a lot of quirky little towns that make up the route. Well, guess what? When they got to Albuquerque, there was no feature about all the cool things that you could do in that little community. They took pictures of Central and the open air drug use, the human waste, the tent cities. And it was sad. It was a national embarrassment. And where's Tim Keller? Where is he?
I couldn't agree more. we're
Don't
not
give
far
Paul.
from.
Don't give a mic to a former talk show host.
We're not far away from Central, and I drive up and down Central more than I think most people do.
Yeah.
Also, our offices are in downtown Albuquerque, so I see many of the things that you talk about. But of course, it's anywhere and everywhere. I mean, this Uber driver that got shot seemingly just for kicks happened over on the west side.
Executed. He was executed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, 2 years ago, I was in Ukraine.
Mhm.
My oldest son and I were over there doing some humanitarian work. We had a demining company, and we were over there. We were working with locals on the landmine issue over there. Ukraine is now the largest country in the world for landmines. And, I could hear the shelling. I was 15 miles from the Russian border. I could hear the shells going back. Russia would shoot, they would launch their shells. Ukraine would launch them back. I wasn't scared, but there were a couple times it was loud and a little unnerving.
Sure.
But it was okay. I got home and I went to meet a friend for dinner, and I didn't take I-40. I took Central, literally right a mile from here. And I watched a man get shot in the chest, 100 feet in front of me, and fall to the ground. And why? Why is it that I can be in a war zone, a literal war zone,
Right.
and feel safe and come home to the city that I love and watch someone damn near die? Luckily, I will give a lot of credit to APD. They were there quick. They had the trauma packs with them, so they were there to, apply first aid. And thank God, this young man, he survived because the bullet went through and through in his chest and didn't hit vital organs. But it was very close to me literally witnessing a murder.
Well, it is traditionally known as the war zone. And when I moved here, my grandmother lived at Central and Wyoming, which has never been the garden spot of Albuquerque, but it has gotten to the point where it truly looks like the zombie apocalypse. And so how do you solve those problems? And, homeless and crime are both related and separate issues. So give me your take on what's not happening and what needs to happen in Darren White's Albuquerque.
Let's take Phoenix as an example. Phoenix had a problem just like ours a couple of years ago. Some business owners got together. They got fed up. There was a tent city that had, I think, 750 people in it. And these business owners got together and said, we're done. We're suing the city because you're not, we pay taxes and you're not enforcing the law. A judge agreed with those businesses and gave the city, I want to say it was like 90 days to clean it up. The city went back to the judge and said, we need more time. And the judge said no. Guess what happened before that deadline? They cleaned that city up. They took those tent cities down. And so I will say this to you. The Supreme Court ruled last year that municipalities can enforce their laws. Albuquerque has had it on the books for decades. You cannot sleep on our streets, our sidewalks, and our parks. Can't camp. It's illegal. So what the Supreme Court of the United States said in response to an Oregon case is that you can enforce the law if you have services available. And they were speaking specifically of shelter space. Well, we all know that Tim Keller spent probably over $250 million in the last few years on the Gateway Center. So we have the infrastructure. And under my administration, on day one, Paul, we will go out and provide them an opportunity to go to one of our shelters, to go to the Gateway Center for treatment, and to have them take advantage of the services that are available. If they do refuse, they will be arrested. It's not hard. They'll be arrested. If they refuse to move, they'll be arrested. I guarantee you we'll clean up the streets just like they did in Phoenix and in other cities. The reason why Albuquerque has this embarrassing situation is because Tim Keller is afraid. I don't give a damn what the ACLU says. I'm not afraid of the ACLU. Mm-hmm. They don't get to say that the people like your mother-in-law who lived at Wyoming and Central, why should those businesses, why should those families be subjected to that filth, that lawlessness, and most importantly, how do they survive in it? Mm-hmm. And so I also think it's a public health issue. And so, yeah, we'll shut it down on day one, and that's how we'll do it. We won't tolerate. Why is Rio Rancho not suffering from the problem?
Right. Well, I will ask you about that in a second, but obviously you're one, and I do blame the mayor and his police chief for not enforcing the law. Obviously, you can't do everything yourself. You have to deal with judges and other components of the justice system. Now, theoretically, the DOJ is going to leave us alone. We're not going to be under the consent decree anymore. Do you expect that you'll be able to, I guess, hire police officers? What are your strategies specifically for addressing crime?
Well, first and foremost, I will look, if I win this election, Harold Medina will resign that day. He knows that. And this race isn't about Harold Medina. It's about Tim Keller. But I will find a police chief who is a strong leader, who's an inspirational leader that not only the law enforcement officers, the cops on the streets can be proud of, but the public can be proud of. We need to restore confidence. And when I say that, I don't talk about the officers. We need to restore confidence in the police department because I don't think it's there. The other thing we have to do is Medina just recently told the city council that his executive staff now is over 50. And when R.J. Berry was in office, it was around 15. Now he blames the DOJ. And of course, look, this is all they do is they blame, oh my God, it was DOJ. Oh my God, it was COVID. We can get back to where it was at 15. We don't need a bloated executive staff in the police department because we need boots on the ground. We need officers to answer calls for service. I hear it time and time again, Paul, from people. I just hang up. Medina's running around saying, crime is down. Well, people aren't reporting because it takes so long to even get them to answer the phone. The other thing we do is we've lost proactive policing. Back in the day, what we would do is we do traffic stops. Tell me the last time you saw a police officer doing a traffic stop. Doesn't exist.
Very rarely.
Very rarely. Well, that's what we call proactive policing because, you walk up to the car and you say, can I see your driver's license, your insurance and registration? They go, I don't have a driver's license. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? You don't have a driver's license? Well, that's a big sign right there. You don't have to be a trained detective to go, oh, that's interesting.
Well, a lot of times they don't have license plates. I mean,
they don't even have license plates, especially the motorcycles.
Right.
And that's another issue.
Right.
But then you look in the car and you see things that don't make sense. They probably have a warrant because they're lying about their name, but you're getting bad guys off the streets from just doing traffic stops, and we don't do that anymore. We need to free up our officers so they can drive around and pay attention to some of the things that are going on in their beats, because right now they're just going call to call. And so, yes, there is a recruiting crisis in our country, and that's not going to be solved overnight. But, I simply look at, Joe Polazar was the chief 30 years ago, and I talked to Joe recently, and he said, Paul, that there's as many police officers working the streets today, and I'm talking about patrol officers working the streets today, as there were 30 years ago. And I think we all can agree that our crime problems have gotten worse. And so I would simply say it this way. We all know the broken windows theory, and it has been validified in Albuquerque. If you ignore the little things like tent cities, like people human waste, not answering calls for service. Well, guess what? Then the small crimes become much bigger crimes. And that's what we've witnessed here in the last 8 years.
All right. Well, you mentioned Rio Rancho a minute ago, and I would say that one of my hypotheses is that Rio Rancho doesn't have a bus system like the city of Albuquerque, certainly not a free bus system like the city of Albuquerque. And I'll take a quick side note and say thank you for completing our candidate survey, which is available on Heirs of Enchantment and Rio Grande Foundation.org. And it'll also be posted in association with this podcast on our Tipping Point, New Mexico website. But it sounds, well, from your answer, you think the free bus system needs to go. But where do you see that whole situation? Because the journal, Albuquerque Journal's repeatedly cited that as a getaway car of choice, so to speak, for the criminal element, the shoplifters of Albuquerque. I mean, it's just such an unforced error to do the free bus thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. It's hard to imagine that you've made the buses free and, they have become, not only are they dangerous for passengers, but I'm very, very concerned about the bus drivers. We have seen, several attacks on the bus drivers, and I can only imagine what it's like to drive that bus. They had to build like a cocoon for the bus drivers right now. They're encased in plexiglass right now. Let me tell you, Mark, or Paul, really upset, well, whatever your name is, Paul.
My name's not Mark Ronchetti, but assuming that's who you're channeling.
Paul Mark.
We're all in the Bible.
You know what I just heard? I just heard the director of transportation for the city is wanting to create a police department for the bus system, which would be almost 100 officers, and which would make the bus system police department one of the largest police agencies in the city. So what the hell's the problem, Mark? Your buses aren't safe. Right. I mean, so, well, wow. Maybe this experiment didn't work because now we have to have one of the largest police departments implemented to keep the buses safe. This is just so asinine. And it also goes, and you wonder why the budget has increased 57%. Well, this is why. Because they just keep spending and spending. But getting back to the basics of the bus service, somebody once called it a drunk tank on wheels. And we've heard from many of the bus drivers as well that have reached out to us. And basically what you have is homeless people driving around on the buses all day. They sit in the back and they raise hell. And what kind of, but again, Mayor Keller doesn't give a damn if people who are not wanting to cause havoc and chaos on the bus, if they just need to get to a job and they only have transportation by the buses, but Keller doesn't give a damn that their little ride, because you know what? If he did, wouldn't he care about the people that live in the corridor, the businesses in the corridor? I went down at First and I-40, big tent city. And basically what happened is it became the Coronado Park. When Coronado Park was shut down, because as Mayor Keller said at the time, it was the most dangerous place in New Mexico. Well, they all kind of migrated over to First and I-40. There is a little lawnmower repair shop there on the corner. And I stopped in to say hello to them because I didn't understand how they could be in business with that. There could be over 100 of them, homeless people. And he said, we don't. He said, it's really, really tough. And while we were sitting there, we watched a guy stick a needle in his leg. And he said, this is what I put up with. He goes, yeah, and he's not going to dispose of that needle. He's going to throw it on the ground. Well, then he was telling me that he fixes little lawnmowers and he sells them out there. And it was like a year ago, I think he said to me that he saw one of them pushing it down the street. And he ran and grabbed it from him. And he said, and they tussled over it. And he said, and the guy hit him in the chest 3 times. And he said, when he got back to his business and he reached in because it really hurt on his side. Well, he realized he was stabbed 3 times. Yeah. And this is Mayor Keller's Albuquerque. Oh. And as I said, let me put it this way to you, Mark. And this is what I love. Yeah,
that's okay.
Did I say Mark again?
Yeah, it's okay.
Paul. I should write this down. I'm going to put it on your computer. I've done Marchetti's podcast way too much.
I know. It's okay.
Paul, let me put it this way to you, Paul. If you believe Albuquerque is a safer place in the past 8 years, if you believe Albuquerque is a cleaner place in the last 8 years, then by all means vote for Tim Keller. Don't vote for me. I'm not your guy. I can't put it any more simple, Paul. I can't. If you do, then vote for Tim Keller, not me.
All right. Well, we have a few minutes remaining. I don't want to do lightning round kind of stuff, but one of the things that I think is a challenge for you and other folks challenging Mayor Keller this election is the city campaign finance system, which of course has resulted in him receiving significant resources at taxpayer expense to run a campaign as an incumbent already with high name ID, and every other candidate, all other 6 of them, including yourself, not having the ability to get that. Do you think that system is broken? Do you think we should abandon it? Feel free to throw anything out there on that.
Well, Paul, you and I are alike, right? In that we're fiscal conservatives.
Sure.
And I don't believe taxpayer money should be used to fund attack ads against. And again, look, I'm talking, yes, myself included. That's not what public money should be used for at all. And so I've never supported the system, and I still don't support the system. Tim Keller is the only person that is qualified for public financing in the last 15 years. And so that should say a lot about that system. And I can tell you, as somebody that worked hard, because look, it is the system. You're stupid if you're going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to take that money. I'll just let everybody take the $750,000, but me," because you have to have money to win these races.
Mm-hmm.
Getting 3,800 $5 donations, as 5 of us I think tried, it's impossible unless you have that structure of all the nonprofits. Look, he's been in business for 8 years. He doles out a lot of money.
Right.
He doles out a lot of money to nonprofits. He has 250 people that he has as a mayor appointees.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a pretty good base that he went to, and he was able to get it. It needs to be fixed. I would like to see it go back to, hey, just if you can raise money, good for you.
Fair enough. All right. And then, I'll refer people again to our candidate survey, in which we highlighted some of these. We definitely talk about the crime issues and the homelessness issues, but there's obviously a lot of economic policy making, taxes, tax increases, spending's gone quite a bit, up, not just obviously not for police, but other things. What are some of the economic challenges and solutions that you would bring to the city that we haven't really talked about so far?
So I recognize, as somebody who's been involved in small businesses, 2/3 of all jobs are created by small businesses in this town. And we've created a very hostile environment, especially when it comes to zoning. I've talked to several construction companies, people that do development, that it's taking now upwards of 2 years
Mm-hmm.
to get the permitting process done.
Mm-hmm.
One of an entrepreneur and successful entrepreneur that I talked to said, "Look, I'm done. I'm done with the city of Albuquerque. I'm going to Rio Rancho, where
Mm-hmm.
they at least welcome you." So we need to completely revamp the zoning department. Here's one of the solutions that I think will help. I suggest that the permitting process that we provide with it, we go to a third party and hire a company that can do these reviews so that we can get that process expedited. Clearly, we don't have the resources to do it or the will, but I think if we researched having a third party assist the city in getting these permits done, we should do that. And they have that system where if you pay more money, you can get your permits. Why is that? We shouldn't have to be that way. It should be that if you want to build a house, if you want to build a business, it should be the same for everyone. And I'll be a partner with businesses. I can't tell you. It's exhausting how many people say to me that the zoning under Keller is just it's just difficult, super difficult.
Yeah. Well, let's give you an opportunity. Anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure that people are aware of? Of course, I definitely want you to give out your website and your Twitter/X at Darren P. White is how you can follow Darren on Twitter/X. Any other topics or any other information you want to share with people that we haven't covered here, though?
Yeah, like you said, we are doing this campaign with private financing. My website is darrenwhiteformayor.com. That's darrenwhiteformayor.com. And we'd appreciate your support. Look, we're at a tipping point in this city. We either turn this around, or I'm afraid we'll be at a point of no return. And I already have heard, like, again, this one business, I'm not going to mention him, but he's done with the city. And he said, "I'll give you a chance if you get elected, Darren." But we're going to lose more businesses. We've lost Walgreens. We've lost CVS. We've lost Paul.
Yes.
That's funny. I was just trying to be funny.
Mark Paul Gosselaar, I believe.
Mark
is
Paul. We lost a Walmart. I put that in perspective. We lost a Walmart. What city loses a Walmart?
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough to do that.
And so, look, I'm somebody that wants to turn the city around. I think the city is worth fighting for, and I'm willing to do my part. And as mayor, I think I could do it.
And of course, I'm going to take off my interview hat and put on my political science hat and say my expectation and I just want to see if you share this viewpoint, is that with 7 candidates, 5 what I would call fairly reasonable, including yourself, more or less. We can hash out who the more reasonable are, and the voters will have that say. And then we've got the 2 what I would call extreme progressives. We've got the mayor and Ubaez, and then yourself, and that group. I expect that we'll be in a runoff. So that would put Pitt, hopefully, maybe 2 of the 5 will make their way through, but I'm expecting that we're going to have a progressive at the end of the day. What makes you specifically qualified, especially if it becomes mano a mano, so to speak, between you and Keller? Why do you think you're the best candidate to beat Keller in a one-on-one race ultimately?
Look, I like you, I've done this a long time. I know statistically, and the voter registration numbers, I know what they are. I also know that people are fed up. Independents, Democrats, they're fed up with where our city is. Every poll that I've seen is that Keller has an approval rating in the low 30s because he's earned it. Mm-hmm. And so, but that doesn't negate the fact that it's not going to be easy. I believe I'm the candidate that can get to that runoff. With 7 candidates, nobody's going to get 50% plus 1.
Right.
And so yes, you said it. I mean, Paul, I want to go head to head with Keller, because I think there's such a stark difference in our approach to running city government. But most importantly, he destroyed it. Mm-hmm. He keeps making this, we're on a comeback. A comeback from what? And so I will tell you, I will turn it around, and I need to get my message out to the voters that I'm the one to get it done.
Well, Darren White, I appreciate your time today, and good luck in that race for mayor. I completely agree. We need a sea change in the way this city is governed, and Mayor Keller is not part of the solution to that. So with that, thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitch, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.